There's a point where doing everything right starts to feel pointless. You're still disciplined, you're still trying, and from the outside, nothing looks wrong. But internally, something just doesn't feel right anymore. And it's confusing because you don't know what you're doing wrong, but you also don't know what you're supposed to do instead. But the weird part is, this doesn't happen because you lost direction, but because something you used to rely on quietly stopped working. And you can feel it in how you go through your day. You're still doing what you're supposed to. You're staying disciplined, you're working on your goals, and you're trying to move forward. But it just doesn't feel the same anymore. You sit down to work, but instead of feeling focused, it just feels a bit empty. You make progress, but it doesn't feel like it really matters. And even when you're not doing anything, there's this constant feeling that you should be. So you end up in this strange place where nothing really feels right. Not moving forward feels wrong, but moving forward doesn't feel meaningful either. And slowly it starts to feel like you're just going through the motions, without really knowing why. And honestly, it makes sense why this feels so frustrating. Because up until this point, you've been following a clear idea of what matters. You knew what you were supposed to do, what counted as progress, and what it meant to be on track. Work hard, stay disciplined, and keep moving forward. And it worked. It gave you direction, structure, and something to aim for. So naturally, you start believing that if something feels off now, the answer must be to try harder, to push more, and to fix whatever isn't working. Because that's what's always worked before. But that's also the point where something starts to break. Because if trying harder is supposed to fix it, why does it feel worse the more you push? Why does it feel like even though you do everything right, something about it still doesn't click? You're not off track. You're not doing nothing. So why does it feel like you lost direction anyway? Now listen, the problem isn't that you lost direction. It's what's been giving you direction before. Because for a long time, you weren't really deciding what mattered to you. You were following a system that was already there. Things like what counted as progress, what's considered productive, or what you should be aiming for. And that system comes from somewhere. It comes from school, your parents, people you look up to, or even the content you consume every day. And again, that's not a bad thing. In the beginning, it actually helps a lot. It gives you structure, clarity, and tells you what to do next. So you follow it, you work hard, you stay disciplined, and you build something. But at some point, something starts to shift. You don't fully question it at first, you just notice that it doesn't feel right anymore. The goals make sense on paper, but they just don't feel as meaningful as before. The things you're doing still look right, but internally something feels off. And that's where things get confusing, because you're still using the same system, but it doesn't work like it used to. So what do? You try to push harder. You try to fix this feeling. And you assume that something's wrong with you. But that's not the actual problem. The real problem is you started outgrowing the system you've been following. And slowly you begin to let go of those values. Not because they are bad, just because they were never really yours to begin with. And now you're in between two states. You're no longer fully guided by the old values, but you also haven't built your own yet. So you lose that clear sense of direction. It used to be there before. And without it, everything starts to feel uncertain. You don't know what really matters anymore. You don't know what you're aiming for. And even when you do something, you don't fully trust that it's the right thing. And that's why it feels like you're lost. Not because you are, but because the structure you used to rely on is no longer holding you the same way. So maybe the problem isn't that you've lost direction. And it's not that you're suddenly doing something wrong. Maybe what's actually happening is that you've just reached a point where following someone else's path is just not working anymore. And that's why it feels so uncomfortable. Because for the first time, you don't have a clear system telling you what matters, what to do, or where to go next. And instead of seeing it as something positive, it just feels like you're stuck. But this phase isn't where you're falling behind. It's where you stop living by default and start figuring out things for yourself. And that's not something you can rush, because your own values don't come from thinking about them once or trying to figure it out as fast as possible. They come from experience, from trying things, from paying attention what actually feels right to you, from noticing what you care about when no one is telling you what you should care about. And yeah, that can feel slow, it can feel uncertain, and at times it can feel like you're not moving forward at all. But that doesn't mean you're stuck. It just means that you're no longer guided by something external, and that you are starting to build something that actually fits you. So instead of trying to fix this feeling or forcing yourself back into a system that doesn't feel right anymore, you can start seeing this phase for what it really is. Not a problem, but the beginning of something that's actually yours. And once you understand that, feeling lost doesn't hit the same anymore. Because now it's not something you have to escape from. It's something you're moving through.